a more than one take show. But normally I'm just like, he would see me look at a like playback and I'd just go, that's good. He's like, you don't want to fix it? Nope.
Nope.
I know exactly how I'm going to cut it. It's good.
All right. Well, we'll be getting live here in about 5 minutes, but feel free to chill. Whatever. They don't get to see our ugly mugs for another 5 minutes.
Well, that's their issue.
Hmm.
Oh, you know what's really sad? I put up a note because the one detriment of this whole shindig of going to cover people is that my training suffers.
Tell me about your suffering training.
Well, okay. It's one thing to go cover, say, Worlds when I'm not training, but I get grumpy around day 3. Around day 3, I literally start to look around and go, I haven't drilled, I haven't moved, I feel fat, there's nothing but the worst food around. And
true.
so even for EBI, I go, that means the whole day I'm not training. So tomorrow, my gym doesn't have anything going on. I have to ask people to give me a place to go train because I'm like, hey, is anybody interested? Who wants to train? And one of my homies just put up a post right in response to me and goes, hey, Raf, see you at the brewery tomorrow. And I go, no, I can't be fat. But wait, which brewery?
Yes. How often are you training if you, say, aren't at Worlds for a week? Like, what's a week for you? How many sessions?
Honestly, I try to go at least once every day. I'll
Good
take maybe
Lord.
one day off
You
a
don't get
week.
to make those jokes about missing training because anything more than 4 is too much.
Yeah, I mean, but you have to understand, and I mean, I say this regularly, so I'll probably say it on your show. I need 3 times the amount the normal person has. So when they say like, oh, if you reduce your amount of training, that's good because you can think about it and no, I'm too dumb for that. I just have to.
I was wondering where you're going with that. I'm like,
I have to go and be in it and do it multiple times just to stay up with the most average person.
oh,
So that's
okay.
why, when I'm training with people who are competing and they're monsters, they're like, "Oh my God, you're getting so much better," and I'm like, "No, I'm barely up with you. I took 2 other sessions just to be in your realm." So, yeah,
Yeah, I understand there's a bit of hyperbole here, but I do understand what you're saying too because I've known those guys, and it's good that it's not paired because what's the worst case scenario is it's paired with lethargy. So you
yeah,
get a guy who needs twice or 3 times as many training sessions to get the technique, but he only shows up to half as many. And
yeah,
they're the 10-year white belts that are like, oh, no, our coach isn't promoting me.
yeah. I will say my best and greatest gift is just showing up. Like it's the age old. You just kind of go, grind, put in your time. I'm not some genius about any of this. I literally sometimes I look at a move and the white belt's like, got it, and I say, okay,
Fuck you.
you come over here and like show me because they're like, you know what the best part is? Uh, so, one of our guys was congratulating me the other day, and I was like, what about it? And he's like, yeah, you just got your purple belt. And I was like, I did. And he goes, oh, cool. So how does it feel? And I go, no different. And he's like, really? Why? And I go, because I'm exactly as dumb as I was on Friday. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't like I don't get a Mario mushroom that like expands my knowledge or makes me stronger. I was still exactly like you saw me struggling to Birimbolo.
Yeah.
Same story today.
You know what you get when you get a new belt? It's
Mm.
not the expansion of knowledge and the gifting of angels dropping this grand new adventure on you. It's a big old target. You can't see it, but it goes right on your back.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, you know what the difference is between um, between being, say, a white belt and being a blue belt? They're like,
Mm.
no, tell me what's the difference? I'm like, the difference is one person's opinion.
Yeah.
It's the coach's opinion that day. It's like, I guess today you're a blue belt. It's like, so did you become a blue belt? Are you so good that you're now a blue belt, or were you up to that Same
No, I just
standard
run
3 minutes ago.
I just kept showing up to the point where they're like, "Do we have to do it now?" Like, I honestly, I think they tried to get the charter to figure out if they could give me a sixth stripe.
Yeah.
They were like,
You
"Can
get
we? Can we?"
wipeout professor bars.
It just means that I consider it like victory laps.
I'm
You just
gonna
kind of go like, "I've proven it! Yay!"
I'm gonna victory laps. I'm gonna make you a shirt that says, "My name is Raf Esparza. I'm not good, but I'm here."
Yeah, that's honestly, I've written books as much as that.
Yeah.
Like, really, it's I'm not. The motto I've always said is, "I'm not good, but I show up," and that's 100% like when I like show, because it's funny. People will be like, "Oh, that's not true," blah, blah, blah. And then they roll with me, and they're like, "No, I kind of see it now." Yeah, it kind of makes sense. But the nice part about it is there's some sort of rocky element to it, and I don't paint myself as being anything other than who I am. Like, the best part about my experience is, like, when they talk about other comedians or other people who do jokes in jiu-jitsu, um, they're like, some people are playing a facade or a character, like you're Laranja,
Right, right.
he's actually, he does a seminar and people go, "I was surprised. He was quite competent at that." It's like, well, dog, he's a black belt. He's
Yeah,
fine. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah. I
But
took
when they
a. I'll go for it.
Oh no, I'm just saying. But when they see me, I'm like, I am exactly as advertised. These are not jokes. They know me. They might be a heightened version of me on the show, but it's
Yeah.
it's me.
Well, we're live now, so guys, if you are just tuning in, welcome to the first and official inaugural episode of You, Me, and Us. It's going to be airing quite frequently, so if you don't like it, get used to it. It's sticking around. Uh, on the first episode, I'm very happy and excited to introduce my first guest, being the one, the only, the longtime podcast guru extraordinaire. I'm trying to think of more descriptors. He's got a large head, a nice beard. His name is Raf Esparza, and he's here to talk, just to talk shit, basically.
Yeah. There's so much in that introduction that I need to unwrap. Um, well, first of all, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to say, not only is it an honor, but it's a responsibility.
Uh-oh. Okay, you're putting a heavy weight on your head. So what do you bring to the table then, Raf?
Well, this isn't a date. This isn't you meet me on Match.com. I got to tell you, here's the goods.
I'm ready to swipe right.
Here is the reason why. So in talk show lore, first of all, congratulations. You have a show. I'm very happy about that because you produce quality memes, and I think it's high time that people get to see the person behind that more and more, because you get to do the fun stuff where you show people moves. But this is good. You are a very nice and good friend, so I'm happy to be here. But the responsibility is this. So in talk show lore, if you appear on the first show, say you appear on the Tonight Show or say a late night show, you are then responsible for showing up as the last guest.
Oh.
So Bill Murray famously was on David Letterman's first episode in, what was it, December of 82 or 1982, somewhere in there. And so that meant that he had to stay alive and funny. I don't know that I could do that for you. So as long as you make sure that my health is a good standing, I will be there for your last guest too, if you want that. But I don't know.
Okay, so either two things are going to happen. Either A, you're expecting to die young, or B, you're expecting this podcast to go for many, many years. So I hope that it's B, but if it's one, I'm actually curious what type of insights you got.
Well, the first part was, I think this week I tried to tell someone, they were giving me shit because I drink Diet Cokes. And they do the thing where they say, "Oh, you shouldn't drink that." And I go, "I'm aware. However, it's just what's happening. I don't overdrink too much. I don't do a ton of things that kill me, but that kills me." And I told him, I go, "Hey man, I'm going to die first, and then you're supposed to eulogize me, and you're supposed to tell people about how great I am after I'm dead." And he goes, "No, dog, you're way more articulate. You have to outlive us."
So he's putting down your Diet Coke for the sake of his eulogy.
100%, just for me to carry on some bullshit thing about them.
Yeah,
And
it
I'm
started
not
off
going to start talking
selfless. No, we really want you to stay alive. Dot, dot, dot. because we want you to make us sound good when we die.
Yep. And you know what the dumb part is? I got a notepad and I go, mm-hmm. Going in the footnotes for you,
Yeah,
sir.
thought you were a nice guy. Gonna take a few notes. So what's been going on in Raf world? Like I haven't talked to you in person as person as internet goes for
Sure.
for a while. It's been probably a year since we podcasted.
Yeah, we did a nice fun thing on the Instagram, and I enjoyed that because we see each other so much when we're messaging back and forth, or I see a really funny meme of yours that I end up telling other people about. Sometimes I don't even just tell you. I just tell other people. I go, "Oh, did you guys see this? This is really good." Which
Yeah,
I guess doesn't send you a compliment, but it happens occasionally.
don't blow my head up. I don't need that.
I get it, but here's what you have to understand: making people laugh regularly is a tough gig
It is.
because I think that doing it once or twice is not that hard. You can fall into a joke here and there, but to do it consistently and have a high producing average is rough because there are some days, and I know this, and I'm sure you do too, where you just go, "What am I putting out today?"
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm.
I'm thankful that memeing takes me about 5 to 10 minutes per shot because I don't have the time in any given day between a family, 3.5 kids, a job, a whole bunch of things put together to put like a half hour into anything particularly.
I tell people I've taken this idea from my customer service. So anytime I had to deal with somebody who was a problem as in retail, I would give them 5 minutes of my time. And honestly, that's about the same amount of time I'll spend on either a meme or photoshopping something. And
Yeah.
so there was a Leandro Lowe meme that I did today that I was still like, oh, I should tinker with it and I should brush up here and color in the face because I basically put his face on a
Oh, the
Draco.
Drake one. Yeah. Fuck, that was funny, man. I saw that. I got it right away.
Thanks, man. But you know what the dumb part is? It's one of those ones where you go, it's in my head, so I need to put it out
Yeah, yeah.
and have it go away. Um, and it was very nicely responded, but when I was done doing it, I looked at it and I go, oh, it could be better. Like I
Mm.
could do the Photoshop a little bit better. But then I looked and I go, nope, 501. I gotta move on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like I assume you understand probably even better than I do in the Hollywood biz industry how you writers get into a room and just start throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks. That's like my entire profile, but I don't edit anything out.
Yeah.
If it doesn't stick, it's still out there. I'm like, I'll get the next one.
It's so true because I look at certain jokes and I learned very quickly don't shoot yourself in the foot because I would submit jokes to the Tonight Show with Jay Leno and I would write more like a Conan writer. It's just kind of more along the lines of how I do it, but I learned how to write for Jay. And I would always have one joke in a series of about 25 jokes that I would submit that day. And I go, this is the one. This is the one. You watch this one blow up. And
Uh-oh.
then they would pick the Kardashian joke. And I go,
Yeah.
really? The one I just put together and like cut and paste? But it's just because good hosts or good comedians or good brands, they know what works for them.
Oh,
And
so
so
I'm not a good brand. I get it. I see where you went there.
well, okay. I mean, you know what the nice part was? I didn't expect to come and give a referendum on comedy. But while I'm at it, let me speak for all of comedy now.
Sure, do
But
that.
you know what the nice thing that you do, and that I have a hard time with in some way, which is you do the alts. So you do the multiple jokes where you can swipe.
Ah, yeah,
And
yeah.
on Instagram, it gives you the opportunity to do that. And I think it's a clever way of showing the alternate takes. And sometimes I think you don't even like, I can tell which one I think you think is going to like hit home.
Uh-huh.
And then sometimes it's just like the third one. And it's just like you look down and you go, well, the internet has spoken. that's, At what?
Yeah, when I do those, when I build those series, I try to make them like minimum 5 long, just to give some options to go
Yeah,
through for that reason, to see what hits with what person, right? Not everybody's got a good sense of humor.
right.
Um, but I kind of, even if it's 8 or 10 of them in a row, which is the max they'll let me do, I try to sort of set it up the same way a comedian would set up his set. I have a strong opener to catch people's eyes, like, oh, well, maybe I'll swipe on this one. Then I'll have a couple shit ones as the thing goes on. I'll pick it up a little bit at the end, and then try to really give my closer at the
Yeah.
end. And I had somebody mention in the comments last week, I think it was, he was like, why is it that the last one's always the best, though? And I just replied, they called it closer. Like, I'm here all night, tip your waitress. You know how it goes.
Exactly. And it's reminiscent of we call those like a good run. So it's kind of the Rodney Dangerfield. Leno actually used to do this really well. It was pretty cute. He would do they set up the old song "Hooray for Hollywood," and he would just do a series of jokes, and he's like, be like, "It's so hot out there. How hot is it?"
Oh,
And then
okay.
the world's like lamest or silliest dumb joke,
Yeah.
but the key was always the band picking up and being like, "Hey guys, it is so hot out there. How hot is it?" And the crowd would always go hot for it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's sometimes you have those things. So for me, it's a little harder to do that because
yeah,
I get so used to having to go. That's my meal ticket.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
gonna work or it's not. So when I see that you do that, I get really excited because, as you mentioned, there are so many different styles of humor, and especially um, people who judge humor tend to just go, "No,
yeah.
no,"
Pass.
and then when they find the one that they like, they go, "Oh, see, that's funny," and it's like, "Oh,
Yeah, I get
okay."
those comments every now and again. They'll be like, "Oh, this one's actually pretty good." I'm like, that was almost a compliment, you bastard.
Right. Right. I had one person so I had two things happen this week. I had one person chime in on one of our comments that talked about a segment of our show that we had just recorded, and they said, "Hey man, this is a good episode, except for that 5 minutes that you guys spent talking on this." And I go, "No one's asking you.
Yeah.
Like zero people are coming to Instagram user 5,499
Hmm.
and saying, please give me your production notes."
Yeah, I bet his
Like,
DM list is full, and he's logging up the friends that just want to get in there and get his advice on such things.
I mean, it's funny to me. I love interaction. But for me, I consider myself probably first and foremost a producer. So
Huh.
I always think like a producer when I listen to a segment. And there are plenty of times where I'll be on a conversation with Kevin, my co host, and I'll tell him, you need to talk more. Or, hey, I've been only like 40% in this. So I really try to make sure because the whole idea is if you aren't kind of really trying to hit a good balance of you and him,
Hmm.
why are you doing it together?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like the part that Kevin plays. Like you're kind of the witty, got that quick retort, and he's like your whipping boy who just takes all the "I'm dumb" jokes. So it works out pretty well.
I wouldn't call him a whipping boy.
He's not
we
here to
got,
defend himself, so I got to get it in.
yeah, no, I was about to say, I was like, I don't feel good if I'm being honest. We realized really quickly that he has a certain sensibility to make a joke when somebody's attacking him. Say if we do an over under segment and they're trying to make fun of him, he has a really good way of almost making fun of himself, but then returning it to that person.
Yeah,
And it's a really sly thing. Like it's really clever. And I think one day I pulled him aside and I said, if people didn't think any better, they'd think you're stupid.
yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. I kind of told him something similar to that on a private chat I was having one day with him when he was talking politics, which he goes balls deep into. Like I
Yeah.
kind of dabble in it and throw heated opinions at shit I don't know about.
Sure.
And so he started messaging me about this thing back in the Hillary campaign because he was all for that, right?
Yeah.
And he's trying to like throw all these links at me and get me all learnt up in the democratic the democratic way of things. And I stop him like halfway. I'm like, wait a second, Kevin, you got to slow down here. I'm gonna start thinking you're actually smart. It's like
Yeah.
Kaiser Sose when he starts to lose the limp and start to walk properly for a second, and like, oh yeah, wait, what's going on here?
That's the whole trick. So Kevin and I met by doing speech and debate. So we have this rapport where we know we can lean on each other's strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times, you know, it's funny because I'll be a host, but then a guest will say something so stupid that producer Raf will take over. Like everybody wants to talk to host Raf. Host Raf is all, "Hey, it's great to talk to you. How are you doing?" Producer Raf is, "Don't fuck up this show. I swear to God, if you fuck up this show, I will bury you." So a lot of the times, it's navigating a nice balance. But I was telling you off fair. It's just honestly, when people meet me, I'm not playing a character. I'm not, making shit up. It's me. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
those are
good.
my opinions. And people always ask, they're like, "Are you afraid to say things about people?" And I go, I have never written a joke or said something on the podcast that I wouldn't say to somebody's face.
Sure.
And I think that sort of accountability has made many of the athletes very warm to talking to me because I think they know that I'm not going to tell them something that I honestly don't feel. So when I tell them, "Hey, you're amazing. You did this really cool thing," I sincerely mean it. But if I also have to give them a little bit of hassle and I go, "Listen, you kind of fucked up and you said some dumb shit and we need to keep you accountable." We've been very fortunate that a lot of them get that that's part of the process.
Is this why you have a hard time getting a hold of Halleck Gracie? It sounds like everything you just said would not go well for him.
I interviewed him once, twice, definitely once. And I pulled him aside at an event. And this is really kind of one of the things that peeves me about media relations for both local or even grappling shows, even the big ones, if you would. Actually, all of them. I have to leverage my contacts. There's no formal setting where you get to interview people. It's always me going up to them. And at the very beginning, it was very difficult
Yeah.
because sometimes people would think, "Who the fuck are you?" And I would tell them, "Hey, I'm just some guy. Like, come do an interview." And sometimes I don't think people really ever said no, but they need to get a sense of trust that you're not going to crush them. So
Hmm.
when I pulled Holic aside, I said, "Yo, we like Metamorphs." Now, this is when you could like Metamorphs. It's like the
Yeah,
worst,
1 and 2, hey?
you know? And I said, we want to talk about it because we have a policy on the podcast, which is really bring to light new grappling that we see to give more grapplers opportunities. So at the time, Metamorphs was this really groundbreaking thing. And I said, I'd love to hear more about it. And Holic was like, at first, he was kind of giving me okay, who are you with again? And I go, "I'm with Verbal Tap." And he goes, "Okay, yeah, we can do that." And we go over to the side, and he gives me the world's most like flat interview. "So
Yeah.
Metamorphs is a thing." "Yup." "Okay, cool. What can you tell us about it?" "Man, we're working on so many things, but yet nothing."
He's an artist, man. What are you going to do?
Mm. Yeah. However, there is a great clip of Kevin. Kevin had a 1 minute interview with him
I remember
where
that. That was gold. I've watched it many times.
he asked him about when can we expect Gia to too. And to the best part of my true appreciation of what Kevin does is whenever we're in the same room, I feel like honestly we're kind of untouchable. Like I feel like there's chemistry, there's an appreciation, and we play well off of each other. where because he's in Denver, we don't get to play as much. We have to do Skype time,
Yeah.
which comedy, and it's like, hey, what'd you do this week?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Me too. That was funny. Did you do this?
Yeah, you got the Japan delay.
And to our credit, I think whenever we get a compliment from people that says they feel we're in the same room, I think that's nice. But we try to relish those moments where he and I get to work together. But when I put him on camera, he wasn't expecting it. I just go, "You go interview him," and he was not ready for it. He's a good performer, but he just kind of looked at him and said, "What am I supposed to interview him about?" I was like, "I don't know," but he's only giving us like 2 minutes. So, and when Kevin landed that plane, I said, it's probably not great for him, but it's really good for us.
You're doing one of these.
But to be fair, um, you know,
You don't have to
he
be fair. He
later,
gave that to you on a platter.
yeah, but he would also later result in being a person who is kind of silly. So,
Yeah, you know what's weird about Metamoris is the more I think about it, and I agree, in the early days, it was the shit. It was back in the drums days where people would walk out to like Amazon drum music. Like they had so much gimmick money that it was like pouring over into drums.
yeah,
they they thought of everything for the first one, and it's strange because you look at it retrospectively and compare it to the way that the UFC started out. Okay, UFC 1, Metamoris 1. They're basically diametrically opposed on the time scale. Metamoris started at 2018 UFC and slid back to the point of like 95 where they're basically begging people to come fight for free in a garage and maybe we'll get you money which we probably got to pay back to people that we still got to pay back money to.
yeah. I'm, Here's the saddest part about Metamoris, um, at least from my perspective, from Hollick, which is I think he just thought we all had it out to get him, and the reality of it was he put himself in such a corner by never paying these athletes, but never felt any actual genuine responsibility to paying them back. I'm not saying he didn't make efforts to, but could you do that with a house payment?
Yeah,
Could
that's
you
the
do that
thing.
with other people's money and investments and time? And I understand he felt bad about it, but I think the one joke I put last year, and it hasn't been proven distrue, is that Hollick has looked for the athlete's money in the same way that OJ has looked for the real killers. And I stand by that joke. Because you know what? Until he fucking pays it off, then tell me differently. But I feel like, come on, dude. We're now going on what, year 4 or 5 of him not paying these athletes?
Yeah, I remember the last thing I remember of Metamoris was an out of the blue post that Halleck put up on his Instagram that was highly edited, highly curated of Hodger Gracie is going to make his gigantic return. And everybody got all hype and we're like, wait a minute. How much money did you put into this so far? Because that wasn't just whipped up on your cell phone. That looks like really highly produced. And we're talking Hodger Gracie now? Is he doing
Yeah.
things for free now? What exactly is going on here? Like
No.
there's several steps that seem to be missing in what should be a very logical progression of things. Everything to do with paying people back. And I'm thinking, I, this is how it's going to go. Like it seems to be like we're in some perpetual Groundhog Day with him. It's like he comes up on a great idea. I'm just going to do it. I don't need the funds. They'll come to me, and then they don't come. I'll be like, hey, everybody's getting after me because I don't pay people back, and it's not my fault. I'm just trying to be an artist and produce, and everybody's just being mean to me.
That honestly sounds like a much better version of what is the truth, because that's a much more sympathetic human being. It just means they're severely inept. There was also the time when he started putting the blame upon media, fans, literally everybody else but himself.
Yeah.
And there was a point where he kind of said, "Oh, I accept responsibility, but also you guys, you pirated it." okay.
Yeah.
And then it became this idea of like, we've done more for the athletes than you could ever believe or understand. And it's like, don't blame me. I didn't do your business model. You did that. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to be a fan and say there are certain things that you have to do. And to me, it's heartbreaking because the real crux I started to see toward when it was really breaking bad was that he was more so upset he wasn't getting the credit. So then it became not an issue of, hey, this is bad, or I'm really trying to pay, which, okay. It became, you guys don't even understand. Before people were there, my biggest problem is that I tried to pay them too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, dude, and I think he saw the elements of the EBI and all these other things that were taking over that, like, EBI took its spot by all intents and purposes,
hundred
you
percent.
know. So it's heartbreaking in that sense because they did start a movement, but I also feel like you can't get hung up on, at least my perspective. I can't try to over explain this to people, but getting hung up on the actual legacy without putting in the work is problematic. You want the credit and the adulation, but
Right.
when things get rough, you have to grit that shit out.
Yeah. If we try to mirror it again back to the rise of the UFC,
Mhm.
like really, and everybody admits this who was involved in it at the time, the only reason it didn't completely flop was because there was millions of dollars of backing money that was being
Yeah,
flushed down the toilet. This is something that Halleck didn't have. Obviously, not a lot of people have that to just throw 50,
first two they had
tens
they
of
had drum
millions of
money.
dollars.
Don't forget drum money,
They
okay?
had drum money, but this is what I'm
Because
saying. It wasn't Halleck's money. It wasn't his to
yeah,
throw away, so he had to pay it back. That's something the Fertitas didn't have to worry about so much. Obviously, they're losing their own money. It hurts, but it's not like people are going to come after me. It hurts.
yeah,
So I think that quite honestly, like you're saying, he started something that was honorable. I think that it's something that will go down in the annals of time as this is where X started. And I think X is like people being paid in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at high levels, having dream matches. It's locker room talk that everybody wanted to see for years.
yeah.
Um, but the problem being is it didn't have that safety net that the UFC had. And maybe if the UFC didn't have that, we wouldn't have MMA the way it is today. It's probably not. Like it
It's
took
very
them it
possible.
took them years and
There,
years and years before they were in the black. So
honestly, it just, again, if there's one thing I really want him to understand, and people who support Metamorphs, is that we've always been very pro get the athletes paid, get them on notice. I mean, that's part of the reason why we would go cover it. We covered the first, no, not the first one. So we did Metamorphs 2, Metamorphs 3 live.
mhm.
And then they said no more media. And I said, that's stupid. Because they, at a certain point, decided that they wanted to have the bigger fish come over, which to me was a nice way of saying, thanks, guys. We appreciate what you did
Mm.
for us. But now we're going to bring the real people. And it's like, you didn't get
Yeah.
here without our help, you
Yeah.
know? And still, we found ways to cover it because I said, you know what, really, at the end of the day, it is the athletes. If the athletes are getting covered, I feel good. And so we scaled back some of our coverage because we couldn't do it live, and we still watched it.
Yeah.
And then that's when you started hearing everything. I've kidded with Gary about this at least 3 or 4 times in saying, like, could you imagine if you actually took that deal and the monopoly money they would have handed you?
This is Gary Tonin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He remind me what happened between him and Halleck because there was a back and forth that went south
Yeah.
after the Kit Dale match, right?
Yeah. So Gary kind of does that thing that I think most hard workers feel, which is I've produced for you. I've been one of the only people to bring you submissions in a sub only event. So I'd like a raise. And he was pushing for more money. He started to understand his worth. He was calling for bigger matches, and that's what happens. It's normal.
Yeah.
And it's not unlikely for negotiations to go south, and that's kind of where they were going. But Hollick wanted to sign Gary to an exclusive, I forget the figure now, but let's just say it was 140K or some
Oh,
sort of
right. Stretched
thing.
over like 10 appearances
Yep.
or something.
Yep. And so when Gary broke that down, he was like, actually, it's kind of like closer to like 5K an appearance. And I can get that going down to ha 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 and having a match there. And I think I'm just going to do that. And he wisely picked the right thing. But I specifically remember looking at him and saying, well, you made a choice. I don't think it's the wrong choice, but you definitely made a choice. And next thing you know, it didn't take him more than 2 days for him to be
Oh
vindicated.
yeah. Oh yeah. The whole thing broke down. I mean, Metamoris's ship hit a
Well, that was when
proverbial
I
iceberg and
kidded with him and I just said, "How does it feel to have broken Metamoris?" That's I should be on Gary's win column, I think.
Snap City, bitch.
That, well, then all of that, and the dumb part is like, despite with Gary and all these weird things, even with Gordon, they both kind of filled in for the whole role of whatever AJ was bringing, because AJ stole the account and then was on the lam and
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. We're dredging up some awesome drama that I almost forgot about. This was literally the one time that I liked AJ for a very brief amount of history where I was like, this guy's awesome. And then he AJ'd again after that, and I was like, all right, it's AJ.
I will put this on record because one of the nice things that we have in our dynamic with AJ, and I don't profess to have the like best in the world sort of dynamic with him, but we have a fairly friendly dynamic, which is the first time he pushed somebody off of the mats, the raised mats at Metamoris. I said, I think I'd like to interview you now. And the reason why is because I said, I think people want to hear why you did that. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to kind of explain yourself. And so the way I phrased it to him at the time was, hey, man, I'm going to ask you why you're a douchebag. And he said, oh, I mean, I think he's been probably asked that question a couple times. So I think
Yeah,
he was
maybe
well
like a
prepared.
couple times a minute online.
Yeah. So he actually had a very real for him response, which is, I come from wrestling where you just kind of you get really intense and you just leave it all out there, and that's what I've known. So when I go out there to perform, I'm there, and I go, okay, that might not be right for me, but at least I kind of understand you're saying you're trying to give us the biggest bang for our buck as an intense performer. So okay, you explained yourself. When the whole Metamoris thing went down, and he has his thing that he's doing, I texted him and I said, hey man, enjoy the 2 weeks before the internet remembers how much they hate you.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. There was a honeymoon period there for a second. He was the hero
And
that everyone wanted, and then he AJ'd again.
so, uh, I mean, again, he's a weird human being. Keenan said it best, where he's like, yeah, I see right through it, kind of a thing. He's really a sweetheart. He's not this person. And multiple people have different stories, and multiple people will tell you exactly how they feel about him.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I've heard from many different sources, and they all have kind of their different flavor of the same
sure.
food.
Yeah.
Um, it's since we're on the AJ train of thought here. I just finished listening to your recent podcast with John Calistine, who,
Yes.
first of all, it was very fun. It was very entertaining.
Thank you.
You and Kevin shone so well on those pregnant pauses where John wasn't quite sure what to say, and every time I just fill up that void of audio with my own laughter, just waiting for him to say something. It'd be something so underwhelming, like, "Yeah." I'm like, he has nowhere to go. You're way too entertaining. Like, I don't get. Okay, I feel like you are at the level that he is at in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu when it comes to podcasting, and vice versa. So he found himself against a way too formidable uh, podcaster for someone who's, like you're saying, making the rounds around the podcast world. I'm sure that he'll get his footing and he'll learn and take his licks. But dude, it was so fun to listen to. Um, so tell me now, what is your takeaway between him and AJ? Like after what you've heard from him, is is AJ running scared, or is John not worth his time, or what do you think it is?
Here's what I'll say. I think from AJ's perspective, um, there's really not much to gain for him. AJ is particularly crafted out a brand that it fuels on a certain kind of individual. So AJ is usually the person that chases the other person, like I guess to put it in a kind of a way that people can understand, AJ is the guy chasing the girl in the rom-com who's way out of their league, each time. So all the time when he's writing poetry, it's a little bit of him running at the airport and being like, babe, let's just have this match right here, right now. We're at the airport. I know, but you can't deny that we got something right now. For John's now chasing him, and I don't know that AJ is especially used to that sort of a thing.
Sure.
And the fact that he's using this very sweet, elvish kind of way of trying to get this match, I don't really necessarily see it as working in a way that AJ aligns
I
with.
humbly, respectfully would like to request of you to possibly have a match. Maybe if you would like to do that, I do jujitsu, sir, and you as well do jujitsu, and I would very much appreciate if we could both be doing jujitsu against each other at the same time together.
That was pretty close to what he said. And to be fair, there was a moment when I tried to brand him out because I wanted him to do this. So many people have their opinions of him and Kaplan, and more importantly, individually and collectively. And I feel like on one side, Kaplan can be a liability because he speaks his mind.
Yeah, he's very pro
Sometimes
wrestling.
he is, and I mean that's how I know it. I mean, I see right through it. But he's a nice guy. He's amped up himself, if you would.
Yeah.
But he will offer his opinion even when unsolicited. So one, that doesn't necessarily rub people the right way. Number two, though, he really is one of his biggest believers
Oh
because
yeah.
he fights for that guy, and I do understand that. Like, if you didn't have anybody who believed in you, but you had a Kaplan, at least you have somebody who intensely and passionately is fighting for you. So, in that respect, I feel like it may not gel for you, but you've got a guy here who clearly can't get a match to his liking, and that feel
Yeah.
like much like with Gary, where you feel like, okay, it's time for my promotion. And I thought the most significant part of our podcast together, aside from my great ideas that I threw at him, was honestly the moment when he got to just make his case himself. And to me, that is a grappler laying it all out and saying, I want to be a professional at this. I want to be this guy. I want to respectfully call out people and do it on my terms. But that doesn't work apparently. And it's infuriating. And that is part of the reason why when we media train, when we do these podcasts, when I make fun of the person or I get them to, I roast them a little bit, it's with the intention of, I want people to listen to this podcast and get to know this person better. And if they like me or not, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, we don't necessarily do anything that's out of the ordinary. Like, we don't do anything that's super mean or bullying-ish, and
Yeah.
if we were, these motherfuckers can kill us. So I don't really,
Yeah, there's always that, right? It feels like
as much as
you're
we're like,
like,
ooh, verbal bullying is the worst. No, real bullying, when they hurt you, also hurts.
yeah.
They can still make fun of you as they pounce you. So
I like that you hang a lantern on that quite often. You'd be like, "Look, I know that you could kill me, but," and then just like a absolute tirade that rips them from from head to toe. It's like we're gonna start with, "Yes, I know you can kill you. We're past that now. So now we can just talk."
I like to be very clear in saying they have skills, and I feel I have skills, and I feel like one that I've honed in the same way that they've spent time on the mats is I've spent time on a microphone.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like the way that they approach their competition or hitting the mats and going out there and putting themselves out there is me going week after week after interview and saying I'm acclimating, I'm becoming more of a better interview, I think,
Yeah.
each time. So for me, I feel like that's always my art and what I can offer. And when they, when Johnny's leaving those pregnant pauses, you can't do that with me. Because one, it's radio, and
Yeah.
two, you really like sell yourself, learn how to do that. So it's my hope that by the end of it, when he's taking pot shots at me, I think, all right, we're getting somewhere because now he's secure enough to try. Now, granted, him trying to do that is really, really cute and adorable to me. Just like a puppy kind of nipping at your feet, and you're like, you're trying so hard. That's adorable.
Good for
But I,
you.
but I also want to make sure that they understand that I respect the nature of, I'm not just going to come out here and call them a douchebag. And, we go to train and maybe like, hey, I didn't mean that douchebag comment. I make it very clear. It's like, these guys are killers. They kill themselves every day in the training room. So they should be respected in that, but also like, I'm going to make fun of their face. So
what else are they there for? In my estimation, after listening to that podcast and hearing your own insights both on that one and just here, the way that I think I see John, and I'll start off with a disclaimer that before I knew John as an EBI champion, I had heard myth and lore of how good this guy is from everywhere in the jiu-jitsu universe, not just from the death squad, which would be like, well, you're biased, yeah, he's probably good in that room, and you're trying to pump your boy, but no, like from 10th Planet guys, from GB guys, from everyone who comes through that room, they're like, no, he's the best. Like,
Yeah.
you don't get it. You think that the people that you see are the best. You think it's the Gordons, the Nickies, the Garys, the Wolverines. He's like, no, they fear his leg locks. Like, he's that good. So it feels to me like after hearing all this myth and lore and then seeing his problem he's having with his own promotion, of himself as a brand, as a fighter, it feels like he built up his skill set so high in the one column that he's run into this problem where he's too scary to fight, but his going up in his name brand isn't worth enough to make it on par. Be like, okay, well, I might lose against this guy, but at least I got the fight against John Calistine. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like the opposite
100%.
of the Sonnen effect, where he just has to walk out there. It doesn't matter if everyone in the world can triangle choke him, and he just has to say, "Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck," and he's got a title shot next week.
It's pretty good. It's your tone for your chail is actually not bad.
Yeah, I just sort of don't speak out of my nose.
It's pretty good. Here's the hard part. The reality is the promotion part is part of the game. And I think that so many athletes just think to themselves, why can't I just be good at this?
Yeah.
And the hard part that is with what we see is you have to make a compelling reason why I need to see this match. And some people are good at it. Gary comes up with making fun of Colby Covington's sister, or saying he's gonna ejaculate in his face. I mean, I don't even know what Gary puts half the time because I feel I just made it up in my head, and then it just is confirmation when I see it on my phone, and I go, "What the fuck is this idiot talking about?" Because Gary, in the same sense that John Calistine is working, Gary's a two-stripe white belt at shit talking that thinks he's a black belt.
Which is great though, because he's prolific on Twitter and on Facebook. Like, my whole feed is half Gary Tonin because he's just sitting there with his phone typing things out that he thinks, doesn't edit, doesn't proofread, and just fires that shit out there. Oh, by the way, and then like these 10 tweet rampages.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure it's a text message chain brain trust between him, Gordon, perhaps some sort of leg lock demigod as well on that chain, if I were guessing. I feel like though, because I know Gary's sense of humor, he's just like a playful kid. He wants that
Yeah,
attention that goes
yeah, it's
with him,
totally it.
and so I understand that. That's fine. Part of the reason why I like making fun of Gary is because I know he can take it, and I know
Yeah,
that he's got a good sense of humor about it. So whenever I see him, it's pretty easy to step into the role of being a guy who doesn't like him because he'll post on some of my nonsense and want to include himself, like a kid who's like, hey, did you guys see me? Did you guys? I want to talk about this, and I want to say something. Hey, did you guys see me again? Like Gary,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. But because the game is in that infancy of really making it happen on the grappling side, I feel like he makes it compelling. Every once in a while, I think he's pretty witty too, but a lot of the times, if you resort to the gay jokes and stuff like that, that's when I just kind of go like, you got any A material, dude? Because
Yeah, I
I got
get the
places to go.
feeling that that's kind of a lot of those guys, a lot of those grapplers, even around that area, around the Jersey and the New York area, they seem to still have like 2 decades old senses of humor. They don't
Yeah.
have that West Coast PC sensibility of trying to keep things a little below the
Well,
flaming
no, I mean,
line. They'll just
but
be
it's
like, "Oh,
each
and
listener
that
makes
faggot,"
a choice.
and shit like that, and
Yeah,
they'll
yeah,
be
yeah.
wondering why people get really mad about it.
But here's the thing that I've always felt about, uh, you know, I love when people go on the PC rant for multiple reasons. Because when Jerry Seinfeld gets on the TV and is like, "These kids, they're too PC. Look at them. I can't go to performing colleges." You go, Jerry, when's the last time you've been to a fucking college? When have they ever afforded you?
Yeah, for real.
And the fact that his hardest day at work is that he has to not make a certain kind of joke is not a concern of mine.
Uh huh.
As a comic, I make tons of jokes, and I understand you want to have the ability to finesse your work, to go out there, not feel like you're having like brain police coming in and everything you think has to be perfect. There should be a sense that you can feel out the words. I also feel, though, that it's very important to understand that when people give you a certain kind of feedback, if an audience gives you a certain kind of pushback and says, "I don't know that we like that word," sometimes it's important intel to have.
For sure.
What is interesting to me, though, is the choice to say certain words for the mere point of trying to be funny in saying those words is when I go, nope,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. Just throwing a C word here, or, I've seen certain very important people throw around, like being like, "Oh, that faggot," and then thinking like that's the punchline, and being like, "Hey, faggot." Anybody?
And
And you
then,
go, no, I mean, work harder.
yeah.
You don't necessarily get the same kind of what I would call a participation trophy just for doing that, because
Hmm.
really honing a comedic craft is tough. And yes, there are going to be comics who are to their dying day who are going to say, "Allow me to say what I want." And I've always been of the mindset of you have the entire carte blanche to say whatever you want. And I think that we recently talked about this on the podcast. Joey Diaz recently said that whole shit about
Mackenzie
uh,
Dern.
Mackenzie Dern. And she's a beautiful woman, okay?
Yeah.
And the whole point of his joke is she's beautiful, that I would do disgusting things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said it as only Joey Diaz could. Now, would I do that joke? No. When he does it, you laugh because it's so over the top that you say, "Oh, okay."
You know what, though? I think that really didn't hit the right chord that he was expecting it to because it was in text. When people read it, they read it in their own voice, in their own head. It's not like he's on behind a mic or on JRE and he's got that atmosphere before he blasts this outrageous comment out
Yeah.
there. It would probably be more hilarious if it came from his mouth. But I remember reading it like the morning after it happened, people were passing around. I was like, I know who Joey is. I know his comedy, and I understand this is totally on par, but man, that's gross to read.
Yeah. And again, Joey, again, I have a very firm belief in this exact expression I have over it is something I'd be willing to tell him in person. Joey is a friend. He is hilarious. He is amazing. He is not just a vaudeville style of comic. He is a very, very versatile, very adeptly smart at what he's doing. And I think he knows his demo, but he's also in the stage of I don't give a fuck.
Right.
So I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And there's something to that. And I think that's why people respond to him. But notice, though, it's not him just saying, like, oh, that pussy, you know? Like, it's him coming up with a joke where the butt of it is how gross he is and how beautiful she is. It just reads the most sexist and
Yeah.
gross. And, you know, like I said, it's not something I would do, but I would never censor his ability to say it. Now, the unfortunate part of that is there are consequences because think of this. While it plays well to you and me, and maybe that's who he's trying to reach, to Mackenzie Dern, she reads that and just goes,
Yeah.
thanks. Okay, that's kind of gross. But to be fair, that's the least of her issues because she's got a pretty okay life.
Yeah. I wonder if her translator got it first and sort of gave her the muted version. It's like, oh no, he say you're very beautiful behind.
It's exactly how I hope my future reads when people start talking shit about me. Like, just read me the gist of it. And they're like, they say that you're a brilliant mind, but that impression just needs some work. No.
Yeah. So tell me this, Raf, since you've been around the scene, air quotes, in California, you know the BJJ scene for years enough that were you there? Have you talked to or interviewed Mackenzie at the time that she actually had an LA accent? You
Oh
have to
my
go
god.
back sometime, though,
I
right?
know. You want me to timestamp
I
sell her out.
do.
I've got it.
I
Okay.
do.
So when I first met her, I didn't think she was actually from here.
Okay.
I didn't, you know, because I think it's very difficult when you're talking at events. Because I think I met her at a the World Jiu-Jitsu Expo, and she very sweetly gave me some time to interview her. The tape got warped, so I'm very sorry. It doesn't really exist as a full interview. But it was her being very nice, and it was 50-50 because I would say things, and she would do that thing that sometimes people go where they're like, yeah, okay. Where you go, wait, do you know what I'm saying? But there
Mm.
is a little bit of an accent. I think the accent becomes more pronounced over the years. And to her credit, she has answered that question a couple times because journalists have asked her. And think about how weird that is
Oh yeah.
to be a journalist and go, you know, Mackenzie, I hear you're having problems with weight issues. She responds, yes. Now, tell me a little bit more about your accent. You seem to have developed, and tell me if I'm wrong, but a little bit of a different accent. Like, that's where we're at. So that's that hardcore hitting girls, and get them the equivalent of a jiu-jitsu Pulitzer, if you could.
It's like you wake up one day and there's like a wart on your cheek, and you're like, I hope people don't notice it. I hope. Oh shit! People are noticing it. People are starting to ask me about it. Well, I don't remember it being there. It just appeared one day, and now I can't get rid of it. I'm trying. I'm trying to change it. I'm using stuff to make it better, and it's still just. Can we talk about something else?
Did you ever see? You've seen Robin Hood Men in
Oh
Tights?
yeah,
Okay, my dad's favorite joke, and he
the
still
mole.
does
The
it
mole.
100%, 100% out of the blue. I'll just be like, "Hey, Dad, how's it going? I have a mole," and like his timing is so good each time that I can't help but laugh. Like, I have to say this: if I can say that I like highbrow jokes and all that sort of stuff, like
Hmm.
I go out to those sorts of things. I owe a great sense of gratitude to like my parents and my dad specifically because my dad would be like, "We're watching Frasier and Married with Children. We're watching Police Academy and we're watching all the Mel Brooks movies,
Oh
and
yeah.
like I think that's always given me a very kind of, even if I read something like a Joey Diaz, I go, damn, that's funny, good on
Hmm.
him. Like, Raf, you gonna do humor like that? Oh, I don't think it would work. Could you imagine me coming in and being like, hey, look here, motherfuckers,
Yeah. Yeah,
get
for
on
real.
your cocks, put it out, something. I don't. It just doesn't seem right. It's just, I think everybody finds that thing that makes their personality work, and that's why when I mentioned like when people meet me, they feel like they already know me a lot of
Yeah,
the time.
that's important. Well, here's the thing though. It is and it isn't because some people make it work. Like, I'm not going to drop his actual name here because I don't know how many people honestly even know it, but Renato Larange,
Oh yeah,
right? He's so committed to Renato Larange that, like, is that you're not going to find that same thing that you're talking about where people walk up to you and it's like, oh, you're not him. I thought, sorry, you look like, oh, but you are him. Oh, you turned the voice on. Yeah, right on. You're him. It must be kind of weird.
but think of it like this. So a lot of the things that when I say, you know, I do the jokes to the people, I respond as myself. Um, Part of the reason why there's a little bit of confusion is that when you get these people who now think it's part of the game to insult people or to try and bring the comedy into it, sometimes you just don't know. Like if you were to meet Colby Covington in the gym, what kind of Colby would you get?
It's a
Would
good
you get the
question.
kid who's going out there and insulting everybody and being like, these filthy
Probably
animals,
not.
look at these? Nah, you might probably get the guy who's like, yo, I got there because of my hard work, and I'm now putting on this facade that Chael Sonnen's going to back me up because, I don't want to give away the business secrets. So for me, I think to myself, whenever people come up to me uh, and they just start saying things like, Raf, how's your half guard this week? And I'm like, what? I don't know. Oh shit, that's right. I talked about it on the show. Oh fuck, that's right. Oh okay,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. That's just them responding to, my authentic self. And then sometimes to make it a little more fun, doing the characters is always kind of like, all right, that's my personality, but completely warped, or my interpretation of how they react to people. Because I've seen Dana White up close. I've talked with him up close. At one point, one of my friends, he knew him very well, and he goes, "Do you want to get a photo with Dana?" And I go, "Why?"
Yeah.
And he just goes, "Well, I mean, everybody else is doing it." And I was working as a journalist there at the time, and I go, "I don't. It's not how I get down as a journalist,
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing as comedy, where, yeah, okay, I'll meet the guy, and I'm happy to do the jokes to him, but for the mere sake of being in a photo and then two
Yeah.
weeks later going on my podcast and being like, hey, you fucking dummies. Like, it's not really a thing. If he saw it, he heard it, and he wanted to talk or anything like that about that sort of thing, I'd be like, yeah, dude, because you basically said that to us in the press room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's who you are. And that's the self that you put out. So,
Yeah, that's another guy
um,
that doesn't give a shit, and it's
no,
quite obvious that he's very. I think he's very Dana. That's Dana. It's not a facade he's putting on when the mic turns on in front of him. He just keeps talking.
yeah, it's tough because uh, with Dana, you get the benefit and also the detriment, because the benefit is, hey, Dana, can you give me a response to this? Yeah, that fight was fucking terrible. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. All the
Kick his
journalists are like,
ass.
yes, yes, I've got a headline.
Good for him. He understood that fight was boo boo. But then you'll be like, hey, Dana, could you speak about the deal that's coming up with you and ESPN? There's no fucking deal. Nothing to
Yeah.
see here, people. You go, okay. So it's a little bit of mix of both A and B. But I've always wondered this: could Dana White exist as the version we all wish he would be?
Oh,
And the answer, I think, is kind of no. I think there's a necessary evil to being that promoter, to getting shit done, to actually dealing with that many personalities. So
but
I
do
don't
you
know.
think? I think that that's still authentic Dana. I think he's authentically a good businessman too. And he'll
Yeah.
keep stuff close to the vest. He doesn't have to divulge it, and he'll be like, "No, fuck you. I'm not gonna say that."
Well, those are more examples. I'm just talking about like, okay, so Ariel's a good example of
Oh, sure,
why do you
yeah,
like why do you care?
yeah,
You know, he burned you on revealing a Brock Lesnar secret, which nobody gives a shit. Uh, you know, and then looking at just the way how he obsesses over certain things. You know, the way how he makes exceptions for your Connor, and then doesn't have a consistent sort of boundary for other people. How he would protect Ronda. Like, there's a myriad of things that Dana's done that you just kind of go like, why couldn't you just be better and nicer? But at the same point, that is him just going, fuck these clowns.
yeah. Speaking of Dana, now, tinfoil hat on. I want to get into a little conspiracy theory here, and it's a recent one. Um, in the meme world, and especially in the BJJ and MMA meme world, there has been a great disturbance in the force lately, where a
Oh,
number of multi tens of thousands of follower accounts were
yeah.
completely wiped out of the universe as if Thanos snapped his fingers and they were gone. And there is, it seems to be a consistent theme in the ones that I'm aware of, anyways, that all have to do with MMA or MMA satire, and ones that used a lot of WME footage. And I'm wondering if there, this is my conspiracy. I'm wondering if Dana somehow or WME or whoever's involved in, copyright chasing down, these fucking pirates, all those guys, fucking thieves. If they finally got in the ears of whoever's in Silicon Valley running the switches behind IG and pulled some strings, and they're like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, we'll just wipe those accounts, whatever. Apparently, they never got any warning whatsoever. Like, I've talked to at least a couple of them, and they're like we didn't get shadow banned, we didn't get a letter of intent or nothing. It was just they woke up one day and their account was gone, like years of work,
Yeah.
60,000 followers just gone.
Yeah.
So tell me, how conspiracy is that on level from um, high school science teacher to Eddie Bravo?
It's probably not too far out of the realm. Of There's some sort of groundedness because they obviously disappeared without warning. So some part of what you're saying has to be right. I don't know the extent or the byproduct of which. I can tell you this much though, and we've discussed this kind of as we've gone along through our times, just kind of providing uh, kind of friendly advice to each other, where it's like, hey man, listen, I'm not one to tell you how to do your job, but I tend to, on my opinion, not try to use as much video content that belongs to somebody else for the mere fact that I know that that's a possibility. It's written into the
Yeah,
agreement. The question is it in good faith that you are attributing or that you are, and sometimes that doesn't even matter. It's
no,
just in the details, it says very clearly, is this your content? And people who will put a little bit of a meme or a comment think at that point that it becomes their content as well. And those are very murky waters. And for you and I, who both do memes, like not having content is part of what you need.
of
You need
course,
that
yeah.
content so that you can do it. So the real crux is what is parody and what is flat out stealing. And
Sure,
I
let's
think,
cover this a bit because
yeah,
there's a big goings on right now in the EU with
exactly.
copyright infringement, and there's everybody's very worried that even if you're not in the European Union,
Yeah.
they're setting a precedent that could be mimicked or
Yep.
echoed in other civilized countries.
Yep.
Obviously, the big one everyone's worried about is the U.S. because let's be honest, they are the internet. Like the United
Yeah.
States is the internet, and if something happens there, that's a big nuclear blast to whatever industry that is.
Yeah.
So, with have you been following this at all? Like, do you
Yeah.
have any insights into it? I
I
heard it
mean,
pass first reading or something to that effect.
I think you summed it up nicely. I try to keep an eye on it just because of this. Of even though I don't feel I do too many egregious things, I'm aware that a lot of the times, just to get content, you're going to use things to create something. So a lot of times you'll need the beginning part of it, the photo, the image, the video that comes from another person. And so I really like I comb as much as I can to try and make it original content, which is why I've started taking way more photos so that I have my own base.
Right.
And I also understand though that like this week, Melania Trump wore a shirt or a hooded jacket that I thought I had a good joke for. I didn't take that photo, but it's a well circulated photo. So who does it belong to? Does it belong to everybody, or does it belong to that photographer? And the
Mm.
answer is that photographer should have the full rights. But the issue is everybody, the old Wild West mentality was it appears there, it belongs to us. And so that was, I think, that's where I have the issue on doing that with fight content.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my I want to make this very clear. So when people are saying that it is a shame that they lost their hard work and their brands that they had built, I sympathize with that to an nth degree, because what we do, and a lot of those guys who have built into the high tens of thousands for their base, I just think of all the work that I do and extrapolate that maybe tenfold to how much they do on a daily basis, or how many posts they've put up, or how much engagement they put with people. It's just really hard to take the Robin Hood status of I'm going to take this content, or I'm going to stream it, or I'm going to show you the clips, because in my estimation, I am bringing it to a larger audience. As someone who has worked for a multi conglomerate or two, they don't care. I
No.
mean, they literally could buy the same amount of followers to get an impression for $5, essentially, on their kind of side, you know.
Hmm.
So a lot of times it's a drop in the bucket. Where I do have some issue though is this. I sympathize with their hard work. I think it's shitty that they get no notice. But again, there's nothing that says in the rules they have to get a notice. But here's the bigger thing that's always worried me, especially on the jiu-jitsu side, that as much as I try to see the point of if it's not your content, then okay, that's tough. I don't like the fact that there are athletes who cannot use video content for highlight packages, for highlight reels.
Yeah, 100%.
So when they make rules that say that they can't do that, to me, I understand the want and the need to put out that stuff to you.
It's kind
Uh,
of its own little AJ move at that
it
point, is it
is.
not?
It
Right?
is. And
It's
the hard part
freeing the
is
video.
yeah, but think about it. How are these athletes supposed to make money?
Oh, I
You
know.
know?
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, man. It's a very murky issue. I'm trying to keep as good of an eye on it as possible. And I'll tell you this much right now: as much as I'm, um, I'm always trying to do the right thing, whatever.
Mm.
I'm fully aware that, you know, me, other people could be very vulnerable at any time,
Yeah,
and that it could just happen in an instant, even if you think you're doing it right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, the way that I'm looking at it, and again, like most issues, I see a headline, I add it to another headline, I start building up in my head what I think is going on. So I'm not the most in the know when it comes to this issue, but the way
Yeah,
it looks to me, yeah, disclaimer aside, the way it looks to me, it reminds me very much of the Napster thing that happens, a couple decades
yeah,
ago, a decade and a half, where it was, like you were saying, the Wild West at that point for MP3s, for music in general, because before that point, it was all hard copy. Like you had your 8-track, your cassette, your CD, and then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, it's become ethereal. It's just in the air. Well,
yeah,
I've got air, I've got an internet connection. All of a sudden I've got music. Oh, we've got MP3 players. I can just throw them on there. Okay, I don't need to buy anything. And then that happened. And then there was the LimeWire and the torrents and all that, and it came to, I think that ball started collecting enough mass that finally they're like, no, 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 we're gonna have to have some laws to put a wall in front of that. And so I'm I'm curious and also a little bit uh, timid in that regard that it might happen in a similar way with memes, because like you're
Yeah.
saying, everybody who does this, and there are so many accounts now that do this. This is an industry of itself. You know, it's kind of a
Yeah.
makeshift industry because it's not really, run by any heads or moguls or stuff. You know, it's all
Hmm.
just one-off operations, but they all need content and on the daily, and a lot of the time they use the same content. They'll put their own little ideas over the same
Hmm.
picture. It becomes, in the zeitgeist for a week, and we're on to the next one.
Right.
You know, but
No.
where was I going with this? All right, so the Napster thing, like, at least for me, I looked into this actually extensively before. I shouldn't say before, but slightly shortly after I started making my account. I was
Hmm.
like, how liable am I right now if somebody took offense to this at the legal
Yeah.
level? They might be like, oh, well, that's a dumb joke. I think he's stupid. That's fine. But they
Right.
might be like, that's my picture. You're going to give that back, or, I'm going to take, say, $100,000 from you. And it's at that point I started looking into what are the actual legal precedents in this situation. And I came across a thing called fair use. And this is for sure in use in the jurisprudence of the United States,
Hmm.
that it basically protects journalists and satire to use content as long as it's edited for their use. So to me, memes fall under that. But the question is, how much weight does that hold when you've got, however many millions or billions of dollars are going to come down into a movement to protect the almighty holy copyright? Is that free use law going to stop that? I don't know.
So the other thing I think that comes into play is, and this is really I think this is where the unfortunate part happens, coming back to the meme makers, if you would, is sometimes they're just too big, so they try to make an example out of them. And I feel like that's part of what they were doing. So again, that's part of the sympathy that I have is, okay, cool. If you notice, those people had a lot of followers, and it's usually to try and serve as a kind of deterrent. Um, like for me, here's kind of where I started to approach two ideas on this. So number one, this is fresh, and I haven't told anybody this until now. But I had somebody who took one of the photos from my sister's site, the Kid A Photography. Now I have a pretty simple ruling, which is, hey, just don't crop out the logo, and if you could do a nice thing in the comment section and just say who the fuck took the photo, that'd be great. That's it.
Basic.
It's pretty basic. Otherwise, don't make me have to do the things that say that's my photo.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't really want to do that. But if you're a dick about it, I might. And so, I mean, for the most part, we get some athletes who are, they take the photo and they kind of crop it out or they do something weird with it. And there was one athlete who took our photo and used it as a way to bitch about him losing a decision. And he goes, "Can you believe this? What a robbery." And I was like, "Hey, speaking of robbery, where the fuck is our photo credit?" And then like 2 seconds later, just being like, "I'm very sorry, you guys. I didn't mean that." It's just, listen, it's literally the least you can do. I'm not saying you need to give me money for that, even though I'm
Yeah.
entitled to doing it. I understand you
Oh
put
yeah.
it on Facebook or there. You can basically, it goes out and it belongs to, again, the ethereal internet. Um, but at the very least, like, just understand when you crop out the logo, it tells me you made a conscious choice, that you saw it and it wasn't pertinent to your interests. And you know what? Even if you cropped out the logo and you gave us a little thing and just said like, "Hey, thanks guys," totally cool. Like, I get it. It sucks. It's not my most favorite thing in the world, but it is what it is. So that's one guy. This other guy who happens to be on my friends list makes like a little, like, and he makes like fun little memes to like his friends, no big deal.
Yeah.
But I know this person, and I saw him just put it up, and I go, "Hey, bro, could you?" And I like tag there, and he goes, "Oh, hey, yeah, I didn't know that was you. Okay."
That's a weird response.
Yeah, and I go, "Okay." Well, I go, he had this really weird response, and I just go, "Okay, well, do me a solid. Could you, in the future, not crop out our photo, maybe our logo, if you're using our photo, or just kind of like tag us, that'd be really cool." And again, this is somebody who I know. And it's not like
Hmm.
some random person. It's not like an athlete. It's just like, this is a person who considers me a friend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, man, I mean, we're just trying to grow this thing, and I really would appreciate it, kind of thing. And when he does that, he just goes, "Can't promise that." I was like, okay, well then you're gonna hear from me each time you do it. So chill the fuck out, dude. That person 100% deleted me today, and
Oh,
I don't care. But it's more of a sense of, it shows you the mentality of how people think it belongs to them because they see it. And so, like as a content generator that's independent of memes, intellectual property, essentially what you do when you make a meme yourself, you are also contributing. You're making some intellectual property.
right.
If people were to start taking off your logos off of it and start cropping that out, you wouldn't die, but you'd start to get a little miff that's like, well, I put that energy
Yeah,
out myself. So this is everybody collectively now, and there's no, I don't think, right or wrong answer necessarily, but you've got a slice of this property pie that every person is saying, well, that's mine, and that's mine. That's my joke. That's my logo. That's me as a fighter. I'm in there. So everybody's got that slice of thinking, oh, I'm a part of that.
yeah,
And I think that's part of the reason why people, there's going to be a few different interpretations. So for me, it's just beginning again, dude, because I feel like this whole meme account thing, again, the first thing that I thought, my whole gut just went, oh, that's,
yeah,
and then I immediately had to go like, well, do yourself a solid. Don't live stream the events. Don't brag about it. And for the most part, like, protect yourself.
yeah,
Like, for the most part that we do, when we put something there, we try to make it like the stuff that they've shared on their page, because I feel if they've shared it on their page, like the UFC says, here's a great knockout, and then you shared that thing, like a repost of that
oh yeah,
with the UFC in there, you're pretty okay. It's not saying you're going to be the, like every lawsuit in the world is going to like hold you accountable, but for the most part, the whole point of social media is supposed to be sharing experiences that people have. However, if you start to make money off of it and you start to profit, there are gonna be some weird aspects of it. So,
hmm.
yeah, man, it's a terrible issue to be a part of. But I would just venture to say this: if you are a content creator who creates original content without any sort of meme, without any sort of anything else, just really watch to see how you would react if someone started to take that. And I'm not just saying photography. I'm saying like I've had videos and interviews show up on other people's pages and being like, "What
Yeah,
the fuck is that?" Jiu-Jitsu Times, which uh, every time I go up to their editor, Kit, I just go, "What's up, fake news?" And
oh,
like Kit's a very nice human being, and I think he would. I don't know that he would be happy with me saying this, but I feel like he also has provided some jobs to some of those writers. Not many people will pay for writing, and
yeah,
I feel like he does do that, so he does deserve some credit. But there are some people who just don't like what they do, and some of their criticism can be valid. But I mean, I understand it. But when they put up something that said another website basically took their article word for word, might have just, what's a different thesaurus word for this two
yeah,
sentences? It's some bullshit, man. And I pick and choose my battles. And when I see stuff like that, I think to myself, I don't really want to be associated with somebody who does that, something that egregious.
hmm,
But to the other people who make memes, it's kind of like, I would hope. Uh, I'll say this: I would hope that they are protecting themselves, but more than that, I am quite confident they'll regain their followings, because the work ethic that it took for them to get to that position in the first place is reflective of the process of doing it all over again. It's a pain in the ass.
oh
But when
yeah,
I saw the accounts that went down, I was like, they'll be back.
yeah,
It's going to take them a little while to get back to what they were comfortable with and what they earned, but they'll be back.
yeah. And here's the thing: is the jiu-jitsu community. I'm not going to speak for the MMA community because I don't hold more than two toes in that pool at any given time.
Sure.
but the jiu-jitsu community is small.
Yep.
And anyone that has that level of following, anyone basically above 20,000 on Instagram and up, are in the jiu-jitsu zeitgeist. So
Yep.
they're in the minds of basically the community as a whole. So if I take an exact example like Dank Jits memes that
Hmm.
had over 40,000 followers, literally wiped off the map, they came back and in 2 days are up to almost 4,000 again. It's
Yeah.
because they've built their brand already. It's like you're
Mhm.
saying, like they'll be back. And it's not because, obviously, it's because they're good at what they do, but it's because they were already good at what they did. So people know the name. They already have like legit followers who like them. It's not just like, oh, one of 10,000 pages that I like. It's like, no, no, they show up on, X number thousand um, feeds every day until that fateful day where it disappeared. So they, I guess, it's to end this gloomy uh, dys- dystopian nightmare we're talking about on a
Yeah.
on a bright note, is that the community that they love, that they service, has already respected them and still backs them. Like for instance, in the chat right now, I've got someone who just posted hashtag justice for dank memes.
Yeah.
It's out there. Like their followers exist, and
Ask Conan O'Brien what it felt like to get a movement when Team Coco became a thing and he was getting ousted from the Tonight Show. It basically gave him another career revival. It
mhm,
rescued him, and he has recently spoken out very publicly about, he went through a little bit of a depression after losing the Tonight Show. Imagine working your whole life to get this promotion, and then things just didn't happen. And I worked for both Jay and Conan. I'm one of a handful of people who work for both, and I
yeah,
think they're both very good at what they do. Um, I think Jay is a consummate showman, and he's really good to his staff. I think Conan is a genius. I think he has some sort of ethereal nerd that he can tap into at any time and do things that are versatile and are going to push boundaries consistently. But when he talked about the fact that he thought he was just done and going to be kicked to the curb, this online community came through. So when Justice for sorry, sorry, I have to get my hashtags correct
yeah,
here.
yeah, you do.
Hashtag Justice for Dank Jits memes happened. You get these funny photos of them turning him into a Christ figure, being supported by all the other memes. Like, that's the community responding positively. So
Yeah,
that's part of the reason why I don't feel it's a temporary thing. They'll rebrand and they'll redo it. I just hope that they do it in a way that keeps them afloat. I think it's dumb to fucking work so hard and then have that bullshit happen.
yeah, it's true. Um,
But I will
Again,
say,
nobody really knows why it happened though, so it could, it's
I mean, you kind of know why.
you kind of do, but
You do, because the hard part is I think everybody bypasses that part on the, whenever you get your iTunes agreement, you're just like, well,
yeah,
okay, whatever. Like, it's in there. It says it. It's not a
yeah,
thing. And while we all would love to give a warning and have that be a thing, that is, we've
yeah,
all signed on to using this application that is going to grow more and more sophisticated. Even as they add a new element of trying to attack YouTube, that's going to get even weirder because people have done the whole like Instagram live and show things that are on the television that are paywalls. If people try to put that on there, I wonder if there's going to be more of a digital receipt that shows here's what it is.
mm,
Now, watch that become an even bigger problem. So to me, I'm making sure of this. This is the one thing that I've learned for my branded content. This is what I try to do. And I think you do this very well as well. But I think you just find sometimes when everybody's going left, you go right. Like, have things that are identifiable to you and your brand and harness on that because, I mean, take or leave it. My advice can mean jack shit to these people who have done amazing things. But I think part of the thing is like when I saw that more and more people were starting to get strikes on their branded content for stuff that they didn't own, I was like, all right, I'll take photos. And now that I have this nice little bank of photos, like I've got photos from Worlds that I still haven't released, and I toyed with the idea of creating like a database where I would throw them to some of the meme makers and say like, go use it,
Yeah,
throw us a fucking bone and just say like, hey, we got it from this site, or don't remove our watermark. But for the
sure.
mere fact of saying, listen, there's got to be some sort of Creative Commons that we can start pulling upon, just like there's Creative Commons for music. I think it might be something to explore.
So, on that note, do you think that there could be a turning point due to this copyright EU thing that's going on that may break good for meme makers in general?
I'm a little bit of a cynic on this one. Um,
I think that's the common thread, though, is most people think that it's not going to. But I'm wondering,
yeah,
I never thought that it might until just now.
it could. I mean, so maybe, and like I said, if something as simple as these independent groups come together, like if I were to put, like I said, if I were to go through and put a database and say like, here are my rules and terms, which is not dissimilar from say a free database that you have for music and stuff like that. On the music ones, I think it's like freemusicarchive.org. They basically have rules that say, here are the criteria that I expect if you use this. You cannot profit off of this. You cannot do this. I think that whole idea of fostering a sense of community is a small way of striking back to the overall problem of, okay, well, on a large level, they just don't want you to steal shit. But
Yeah.
you might find smaller fostered communities who go, we don't give a shit. Take my photo. Or, hey, because the nice part about Free Music Archive is sometimes they're just like, I don't even care if you fucking tag me. Just, it needs to get out there.
Yeah.
And I think you can't tell people what their artistry are or is, much in the same way you can't tell them how to perceive what it is their art is. So,
Hmm.
like a lot of the times, that's where the difference of opinion happens on, is this video content mine? Well, maybe, you did put your spin on it. So at what point, like, do you have to hit a threshold? Like,
Yeah.
is it so many words I need to put down? Because I'll fucking make a joke as wordy as possible if it gets me in fucking meme jail.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on an hour and a half here, Raf, and it has been
Yes,
an
sir.
absolute pleasure. But
Absolutely,
I'm gonna
man.
have to draw her short here. I think, if you call that short.
Well, you know what the nice part is? I feel like we took everybody down a nice rabbit hole of come to discuss all your favorite parts of memes and MMA and why Gary Tonin sucks, and end on a very, very, you know what it is? It was essentially this last Joe Rogan podcast with Frost Zarabi, where he's like, I'm gonna go ahead and teach you guys exactly what I did with GSP, and I'm gonna tell you like everything. It's great. You guys will love it. It's everything. It teaches you all this stuff. And then in the last hour and a half, I'm going to tell you about religious science interpretation and why it's not factual, and how philosophical science is greater than it was. Like when Joe said, this is my favorite part of the podcast. Joe was like, "Hey man, are you thinking about ever writing a book on training?" And he goes, "No, actually, I'm thinking about writing a book on philosophy." Gets into like 10 minutes of his interpretation of philosophy, and I was like, "Nah, write the book on fucking training, dude. Don't. I'm good here."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll wait for that book. Either way.
Absolutely.
But thank you. And again, Raf Esparza, Verbal Tapcast. You're constantly putting out content, whether it be memes, definitely podcasts. You got the ear of the community, both MMA and BJJ, and for that we thank you. And for anybody wanting to check out my content, it's Because Jitsu on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, I'm always happy to talk to everybody who wants to comment. I'm pretty active in the comments, as is Raf. So hit us up. We're out there, and we'll see you next time on You, Me, and Us.
Am I supposed to? Is that how I? Am I supposed to? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Okay, bye. Just